Hello, hello, and welcome to the PvA Nightly Rundown. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Friday, guys. I'm having the best Friday that you could possibly imagine. You know why? Because I'm on vacation, as they say. I clocked out at about 10 till 6 today. Closed my laptop, immediately blared that Rhett and Link song because I was just so excited. This was my first week off where I had nothing to worry about in probably 3 years. Where I wasn't running a business, where I wasn't, looking for a job in between jobs. The first time in probably 3 years I've had a legit week off. And I am very excited about it. Sorry, guys. I know. Great television. Messing with my phone. But yeah, and I'm going to live it up. I'm going to work on some stream stuff. I'm going to work on some podcast stuff and website stuff. I'm going to play a bunch of video games. My wife and I are probably going to take a day trip or two here and there and eat good food, have just a good time. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys. Probably going to stream a little off schedule during this week as well. Still going to do the PvA Nightly Rundown each night and all that. But just, if I get a chance to do a little special stream here and there, definitely going to do that. So, but anyway, this is the PvA Nightly Rundown. We get together each night over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio, and I run you through all the gaming news that you may have missed so that you don't look like a freaking idiot at the water cooler tomorrow. And make sure I got everything I need pulled up here. And so we'll run through all the news, but this is really like a chat focused show, right? Chat driven. So we do PvA Radio, our weekly podcast, every Wednesday over here, and it's a lot more structured. We do a lot more discussion around specific topics, and we interact with the chat if they're talking on topic. That's not what this show's about, guys. This show is about you coming in, saying the word fart in the chat, and then we have a 10-minute conversation about farts. And then somebody else says something about Super Smash Brothers, and we have a 10-minute conversation about Super Smash Brothers. So feel free to take the conversation where you will in the chat. If you want to talk about the news story we're talking about, have at it. If you want to talk about something off topic, have at it too. And tonight, probably going to go a little longer with the show, and then we'll switch over to Apex Legends around 10:15 or so Eastern time. So go about an hour and 15 minutes because I had to cut things so abruptly short last night. But talked about a lot of cool things with the guys last night. We're not ready to announce anything yet, but we have some good ideas in the pipeline that I'm really, really excited about. Some new content we're going to be working on, both podcasts, streams, but also bringing back written content. And if you guys have stuck around with me long enough to remember the Two Left Stick days and some of the writing content that I did there, that's my main passion, and I'm excited to get to it over on playerversusall.com. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned. You can follow me on Twitter at, damn it. One of these days I'm going to remember to point this direction and not this direction. This is the chat box. This is where I want you guys talking. I want you to populate this with your emotes, with your questions, with your comments and all that. And then I want you to follow this guy over on Twitter because this guy is this guy. All right? And I feel like I'm a good follow. But yeah, follow me over there. You'll hear everything as it's coming, and I'm sure we'll talk about it over here as well. So, any big plans for you guys for the weekend? You guys doing anything awesome? I'm going to watch some League of Legends with my boy, Sean Scafifi, who hangs out in the chat over here from time to time. And then probably clean my house because it desperately needs it. My house is a disaster zone right now. My wife's doing her master's program, and so she's like working on classes all day, and then I'm working from 7:30 to 5:30 every day. And by the time we clock out and we stop working on whatever we're going to be working on, we're just wiped, exhausted completely. So our house is kind of a disaster. So we have to take like half a day and say, all right, we're just going to get this shit back in order. So that's probably going to be at least part of the day tomorrow, but we shall see. All right, guys, you guys ready to jump into it? We're going to start this week like we get every week. Start today like we get every day started with releases of the day. We pull this straight from Kotaku.com's The Week in Games. Zach Zweisen put it together this week. I'm not sure if they have the same person who puts it together each week, but shout out to Zach this week for his work. Also, so I've got these dope-ass shoes, right? These Adidas Pro Fears. These things are hot, right? Legit. They come untied constantly. Constantly. Cannot keep these things tied. But I love these shoes. I used to be a Nike guy, like through and through, in terms of just like, I'd always gravitate towards Nike. I always thought they looked the best. I always like told myself they're just the most comfortable shoes. I bought a pair of Adidas like 2 years ago, and I've just never gone back. Never. Have not gone back. I bought a pair of Pumas at one point, but I've not owned a pair of Nike since I bought my first pair of Adidas. Just so comfortable. So damn comfortable. Tried a pair of New Balances on. And I was like, this is like, number one, the sole was like super squishy. Felt like I was standing on a wet towel. And then like this part of the shoe, right, was like down here. It felt like I was wearing an ankle sock that was 2 sizes too small. I was like, I can't do this. I used to rock some New Balances, those old school, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, hold on. Like the classic New Balances. Yeah, like these. You know? I used to rock these, and they used to be so comfortable, but I don't know what they've changed. Like they're real low rider shoes now, and they just don't fit super well. Which I also wear like a size 13 shoe, 12, 13 shoes, so I got a giant ass foot. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to what's released today. So jump over here to Kotaku. And scroll down to Friday. We're going to go through everything that's coming out this weekend. Here we go. Releasing today, Dragon Quest Builders 2 on PS4 and Switch. Some say that trailer is going on still to this day. That was a long-ass trailer during that Square Enix conference. That Dragon Quest Builders thing just kept going and going and going. It had to have been like 6 minutes long. Let's look that up. Go to the YouTubes. Let's type in Dragon Quest Builder to E3. Seriously, it was so hella long. It was only 4 minutes. Seriously, it felt like it lasted about 10. But yeah, 4 minute long trailer. But that's out today, PS4 and Switch. We have Lethal League Blaze on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Agelos on PS4 and Xbox One. God Eater 3 on Switch. Streets of Rogue on Xbox One. $1,000 with the $ after on PC. Polymole on or Polymole on PC and Mac. Neon Slashers on PC. Royal Life Hard to Be Queen on PC. Spy Tactics on PC and Mac. Isotile on Isotiles 2 on PC and Mac. Super Mutant Alien Assault on Switch. Mad Bullets on Switch. Distrust on Switch. Those are all the games that released today. And then we also tomorrow have releasing on PC Bepuzzled Jigsaw Puzzle Aquatic. You guys are going to want to jump on that. They're going to run out of Steam keys really quick for Bepuzzled Jigsaw Puzzle Aquatic. All right. There was a game that apparently released today on the Switch that I wanted to talk about real quick. There was a news story about it today. What was it called? So this is not on our list. It's making me question whether or not we can trust Kotaku, guys. Can we trust Kotaku's list that this is a comprehensive list of all the games that are releasing? Because there was a game that released, I believe today, called Lust for Darkness on the Switch. And So I use like an RSS feed to go through to find all of my stories for the PvA Nightly Rundown. And this story popped up in my RSS feed from Ryan Craddock at Nintendo Life. It said erotic horror Lust for Darkness might be the most risque game on Switch, and it's out today. And this was at 1 p.m. today, and that wasn't on there. I'm not going to show this trailer because I don't want to monk a TOS myself. But essentially, it's a like rose-covered bed, and there's a naked woman sitting on the bed with a mask on as a man walks up to her seductively and like brushes her face, and she lays back, and it's just 2 roses over her nipples. Family console, ladies and gentlemen. Family console. Because when I'm like, all right, kids, let's gather around the couch, some couch co-op games, it's like, let's throw this one on. But no, I think we had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago when Leisure Suit Larry came on the Switch, about just kind of like, Nintendo is known as like the family console, right? And it's not necessarily, I think it's great marketing on their part, but it isn't necessarily true. Like, I saw an ad on Reddit from like 2006, and it was for the Game Boy. Well, I can't remember what Game Boy it was, but it was when they added the backlight to it, and it said playing Game Boy, the second best thing to do in the dark. And it was like a naked man and naked woman laying next to one another. And it's like, look, Nintendo hasn't always been this like family company. And so yeah, if you guys want to check it out, the game's called Lust for Darkness. I'm sure I say erotic games and people are just like, which one specifically? Which website specifically is it on? So that I will know to avoid it. So yeah, those are your releases for the day. Let's move on to the news. First item on the list here, a little follow-up to a story that we talked about earlier in the week. So earlier this week, we talked about G2A and a rogue employee who went on to send an unsolicited email to several publications asking them to run a sponsored ad without attributing it to G2A, which is both unethical and illegal. And how G2A came out and was like, oh, well, that was a rogue employee who was just kind of operating out of the bounds of what we had approved. And it all comes around this idea of just like, indie developers do not like G2A because people tend to resell stolen codes on G2A, or beta access or alpha access that they got for pre-ordering, and it's taking money away from game developers because it's undercutting their prices, or it's selling things that aren't even supposed to be on the market, and it keeps them from getting a player base in for alphas and betas, or even just like turns people off from wanting the full release of the game because they purchase a beta key, play it in a broken mode, and they think, man, I spent money for this is awful, when in reality it was really like a bonus for somebody who pre-ordered the game. So that's what all that controversy stemmed around. Here's a follow-up from Sharif Syed over at VG247. It says, in the latest update to G2A's ongoing debate with game developers, the site has proposed a solution to a common problem. After publicly promising to compensate developers for lost revenue as a result of stolen or fraudulently obtained game keys, G2A decided to tackle the problem differently by looking at how keys are obtained in the first place. The two main sources of these shady keys, outside of stolen credit cards, are giveaways hosted by the developers or media sites, and emails from scammers pretending to represent YouTubers, streamers, and journalists. In most cases, developers of small games don't have the time or energy to chase down and verify every email asking for a code, so they err on the side of caution and grant their wishes. As many developers later find out, however, a lot of these keys end up on G2A and similar marketplaces, and the developers can only revoke them if and when they realize what had happened. So here's G2A's answer, and as Sharif Syed points out, it's convoluted. Here's what they're proposing. G2A is proposing to develop a tool that checks whether the key being sold has been part of a previous giveaway or was obtained by pretend influencers and media. But for this tool to even exist, or more accurately, for G2A to invest the time and money needed to develop the tool, the company needs at least 100 developers to register their interest by August 15th. Quote, "We have already made some calculations and the development of such a solution will be time consuming and expensive," end quote, the site wrote in a blog post. Quote, "We will cover all the costs, of course, but we just need to know that you, the developers, are going to use it," end quote. This is strange. This is strange on multiple fronts. I apologize. 1 second. I texted Cody earlier, needing to talk to him, and he just texted me back. Okay. Anyway, this is odd for a couple reasons. Number one, this seems like a very difficult solution, to say the least. That, like, I imagine that this will have to happen like this. These small developers will have to automatically populate a list of keys that were given out for giveaways or as part of like influencers or giving them away to the media. They're going to have to manually keep a running list of those. And I don't know if that's something that developers are already doing or if that's going to be something that's a responsibility that would be added on top of what they're currently doing. And then they would have to submit it to G2A, and then G2A would build out a tool that would cross-reference any key that's submitted to be resold against that list. And if it matches, then they would, nix that sale. It just seems, to me, it seems like a much harder solution than, I don't know, the whole business is predicated on reselling keys, right? And the idea is that, people come across them or people purchase them and they sit in their Steam library maybe without ever being redeemed, and they think, well, maybe I'll get some cash off of this. It was never meant to be this like nefariously used tool, but the fact of the matter is, it's what it is. And I think that G2A needs to stop like this whole idea of, well, if we know that developers are going to use it, then we will definitely dedicate the resources to make that happen. Because at the end of the day, this is a problem that you've created and that you need to solve. It's not on the game developers to solve it for you. It's not even on the game developers to assist you in solving it. Sure, I'm sure a lot of developers are going to be on board. I feel like 100 is probably a low ceiling to aim for, but at the end of the day, G2A just needs to do a good faith move and say, look, we understand that this is an issue, to show solidarity to the game developers who we really want to try to help out. Because another thing G2A wants is legitimately given publisher codes to be sold on their website. And in a good faith move, they should just say, we're going to work on this tool. It's going to be made available for you. Here's how it works if you guys want to take advantage of it. None of this like, hey, if you guys think there's a problem, we just need to know you're going to use it. Just need to know. Because what I imagine is going to happen is you're going to have developers just banding together and saying, well, yeah, we need the tool to... This is probably impacting some companies more than it's impacting others, and I feel like those ones who it's impacting less, just to show solidarity with other developers, will say, yeah, we'll sign on to the solution with you. It's not something we'll necessarily ever need to leverage, but yeah, we're interested in that, something like that existing, because it protects you as a creator, right? Like, and that's what it's all about. That's what ultimately matters, is protecting the creators of these games from having their games, the legs for their games cut out from underneath them from these like rogue codes that make it onto the site. I don't know, man. Like, I don't have a ton of experience with G2A, except like the couple times I've heard their name being passed around in these like negative contexts. But this week in the news for the whole like rogue employee that sent off that email, now to this whole idea of like, we're willing to do this, but we need to know that you guys are interested in that. Both of these things just leave a bad taste in my mouth, and I doubt I'll ever use G2A as a service. I doubt I would have ever used G2A as a service before this week, but this definitely just kind of puts a nail in it to let me know that, nah, this is something I'm certainly not interested in. All right. Just wanted to throw that in there kind of as a follow-up. Let's move on. This is an interesting article from IGN. From Matt Kim. I'm not going to read everything here. I do recommend you can type ! show notes in the chat if you're hanging out over here on Twitch, and it'll give you a link over to our show notes. You can click on that. But I encourage you to go and read this entire article. And the reason I'm not going to read it is because it's just hella long, right? If I were to read all of this. But essentially, this is 5 big facts about mental health and game development that are being drawn from a paper from Take This. They released a detailed paper about the state of mental health in the games industry. And these are 5 of the key takeaways that Matt Kim highlights from IGN. So let's talk through these real quick. First, only 1/3 of game developers say they've been in the industry longer than 10 years. And this is kind of wild to me because game development is difficult, and having a pedigree of talent, I think, is important. And it's not like games are something that's brand new. They're relatively new in comparison to other kinds of media, but at the end of the day, video games have existed for about 40 years. And so for the people to say they haven't been a third of people to say they've been in the industry for less than 10 years is mind-boggling. 36% of developers say that they worked more than a decade. I didn't see in here how many people were. 963 valid responses. So only about 300 of those have been in it for over 10 years. And look, this is nothing new, right? We know that there's massive amounts of staff turnover, and that there's massive amounts of developer burnout that's happening in the industry. And so yeah, that it doesn't come as a shock. It's just when you see the numbers there and you compare that to other industries, I'm sure that that's way off from other more stable industries. I would like to see how that compares to other like entertainment industries. Like, how many people who work in television have been working in it for more than 10 years? How many people in film have been doing it for more than 10 years, or in music? Those are more established things. And then you would probably find out the difference in it is there's unions, right? There's unions that exist. Next fact, over half of game developers surveyed say that crunch is expected at their jobs. Again, none of the stuff that we're going to cover that's covered in this article is going to come as any kind of shock. It's just about the data that's put behind it. So 53% of developers reported that crunch was expected at their workplace. Developers considered the work reaching crunch levels at over 60 hours per week. And Take This defines crunch as working long hours beyond the traditional 40-hour working week consistently for extended periods of time. So that's interesting to me, because Take This defines it as one thing, saying, do you regularly work over the traditional 40-hour work week for an extended period of time? Whereas game developers have been conditioned to say, well, we assume we're going to be working 60 hours, and anything over that we would consider crunch. I've talked about this in the past on my shows, both PvA Radio and here on the PvA Nightly Rundown, and I just want to reiterate this. Like, I've lived that life, right? Working 60, 70 hours a week and just kind of like nose to the grindstone, doing my thing, like, and defining myself fully in my career and being that person. And I know that there are probably a number of people who listen to our shows and take a lot of pride in the fact that they work 60, 70 hours a week, who take a lot of pride in being the guy that when you say, hey, man, how are you doing? They're the guy who can say, oh, man, just busy. I've been so busy. I'm not that guy at all. Because of my experience of working 60 to 70 hour weeks at an old job. Because of how quickly I felt myself getting burnt out at a young age because I was doing that. Busy should not be our default state. I should not be going 3 years between having like an actual week off. We need to reestablish work-life balance in just our overall culture. Now, I'm not just talking gaming. We need to establish work-life balance in every industry. I'm a guy that when I get off at 5:30, I close my laptop. I don't have email on my phone. I don't have chat on my phone. I work in marketing, and I work with some clients that can be pretty demanding, right? Like, but I turned my phone off at 5:30. There's no amount of money that anybody could pay me for me to be accessible 24/7. And it's a sad, sad thing that these game developers are being conditioned to think, well, 60 hours a week is our work week. Anything over that is considered crunch. Like, that's a systemic issue in the industry that needs to be dealt with. Next thing that was pointed out here: employees lose trust in an industry after layoffs, and there have been plenty of those recently. And so this is just all about how people working in the industry don't expect to be at their companies long term. They expect that there's going to be staff turnover. They expect that there's going to be layoffs, and we've seen them at Telltale. He lists them: Telltale, Visceral, Runic, Boss Key, ArenaNet, Activision Blizzard, Amazon Game Studio, and then others. I mean, it's an epidemic in the industry. There's massive contractor turnover. There's massive staff turnover. It's insane. And so there tends to be a lack of trust when you're interviewing for jobs, that you just constantly live with this worry over your head that, well, there's going to be company closures, there's going to be downsizing, there's going to be layoffs, all of these different things. Next, social media is a secondary stressor for developers working in the industry. I will read this part. It says, the white paper also noted that while social media does not have a direct impact on game developers' mental health, the reliance on social media services like Twitter and Discord can serve as a potential second stressor. Take This recommends clear social media guidelines and support for employees to help manage their employees' experience online. There have been notable examples in the past where interactions between developers and social media have led to dire consequences, such as the firing of 2 ArenaNet developers in 2018 over a heated discussion with an influencer. And this is just a matter of, like, look, guys, we have all these anonymous platforms at our fingertips, right? Where we can type whatever we want and be behind our anime picture online and say whatever we want and be assholes. Without realizing, like, these are human beings on the other side of these computers, right? The games are made by real people with real feelings, with real aspirations. And yes, if something didn't live up to your expectations, take what you will to the companies that made those games. But to take them directly at the people who make them is just asinine to me. It makes no sense. And so we can do better as a community to not put that stress on developers. And then the last one: support for unionization in the games industry has increased, but is still held back. And so among 4,000 developers that were surveyed, this was at GDC, 47% believed workers should unionize. GamesIndustry.biz noted about the same GDC survey that only 21% actually believed workplace unionization should take place. And then it's starting to slowly gain traction, but it's still not at the levels where, you know, it's a mass that's like just waiting to reach the tipping point, right? And so whenever we have these conversations about it, you always feel a little powerless as a consumer, right? Because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you purchase the games, you're supporting an industry that has all of these terrible practices, right? But if you don't purchase the games, you're hurting the developers who have made those games to begin with. And so it's this catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't, where you feel a little powerless. But I always come back to this idea that, like, it's ultimately on the people who are working in that industry at the start to decide when enough is enough, and to to recognize that they're being taken advantage of, that there's this mentality that, like, look, if you're not willing to do it, there's 10 people lined up behind you that are. It takes a banding together of a large portion of these people to make a change happen, right? And so as a consumer, and as, you know, somebody who does shows and podcasts, I want to talk about this stuff, and I want to make us aware that this is what's happening. But if the people who are in these situations aren't actively pursuing options that will help them to better their own positions, then there isn't a whole lot that we can do from a consumer side. And that's not me being a defeatist. I'm just being real, right? Like, if you're in a situation where you're being taken advantage of and you recognize that, you need to take the steps that you have in your power to rectify that. So anyway, give this whole article a read. It's very good. Matt Kim did a really great job of just compiling some stats, some numbers, and I definitely recommend giving this a read. All right, next item on the list. Let me close this window real quick because I got my drapes open. And it's nighttime. It's the spooky time. And we know when the spooky time comes, that people start looking in your windows. And I start freaking myself out. This one is from Dual Shockers, written by Thomas Franzese, whose name you can't read because it's white text on a white background. Guess I could highlight it. Nope, can't do that either. Start up here. Nope, that just drags the image. All right. Google Stadia Partners program has received over 4,000 applications. It reads, the Google Stadia has caught the attention of thousands of developers, according to technical account manager Sam Corcoran. When speaking at Develop Brighton 2019, he revealed that there have been over 4,000 applications for the Stadia Partners program and reiterated how a human is looking at every one of them to curate good content for Google Stadia. Quote, we've had more than 4,000 companies apply for access to Stadia, and every single one of them is reviewed by a human. Someone is reading, so put some thought into that application, end quote. While that last part of his comment shows that not every developer asking is working on something for Stadia, it does show that there's tremendous interest within the industry for this new streaming-focused platform. I don't know if we've talked much about Google Stadia on the PvA Nightly Rundown, but if we haven't, I will just put myself on the record as saying I believe in game streaming as a concept moving forward. And I think that Google has the weight to throw around to be a real player in the space. And so it comes as no surprise to me that there are developers who want to be on the front end of this emerging technology to say, we want to be a part of this program. We want our content to be on this platform for multiple reasons. First of all, it's an emerging platform that's going to make high-end gaming accessible across a variety of different platforms. Google Stadia, when it releases, is going to have the single largest potential install base of any game platform that exists today. And that is not something that game developers can ignore. When this releases, everybody who has a smartphone, everybody who has a computer, regardless of the specs of that computer, everybody who has a Google Chrome device is immediately going to have access to be able to play these games. They don't have to go out and buy an Xbox, a PS4, a Nintendo Switch. They don't have to go out and buy a high-end gaming PC. So the install base is going to be massive. Why would you not want to have the potential to hit that big of an audience? So that's the first thing. The second thing is whatever subscription service exists around this, I imagine a lot of smaller games are going to want to be a part of. Just like we're seeing with Xbox Game Pass, and like we're going to continue to see as these subscription models grow, that smaller games are going to want to be on these platforms, both to flesh out the library of the programs, but also in the hopes that they're going to be seen. So between the large install bases and the subscription service potential, this comes as no shock to me that there's been over 4,000 creators who want to be a part of this technology. It's no shock at all. This is so much different than VR, which was relying so heavily on people purchasing another expensive unit on top of the expensive unit they've already purchased, whether that was a PS4 or a high-end gaming PC, before shelling out money for PlayStation VR, Vive, Oculus Rift, whatever may strike their fancy, right? This is totally different from that. This is something that on the day it releases will have the single largest game install base, and I'm in for it, man. I think that Google being in the game streaming space is ultimately a good thing. Is it true that I lost a nipple trying to breastfeed an iguana? The stinkiest duck asks. And I'll be honest, man, I'm glad that somebody checked out my Wikipedia page before stopping by here. So I appreciate that. Yeah, it is true. Lost a nipple trying to breastfeed an iguana. named Ricky, after the 90s talk show host Ricky Lake. Yep. Appreciate that, man. Hit that follow button. So yeah, I'm here for Google Stadia. I think it's going to be good. And 4,000 companies being interested in it as well comes as no surprise to me. I imagine there's going to be a lot more than 4,000 before it even launches, expressing their interest in it. So, next item on the list. Epic Games is paying through the nose for exclusivity. This is from Stephanie Nunley over on VG 24/7. Reads, Rebellion Developments is quite pleased with the Epic Game Store deal it struck for Zombie Army 4 Dead War. Speaking at Develop Brighton this week, Rebellion's Jason Kingsley said Epic Games offered the studio a nice sum to make its latest game an Epic Game Store exclusive. While Kingsley said Rebellion typically prefers, quote, not to do exclusives, end quote, the studio is more than willing as the price seemed right, especially with Epic, quote, paying through the nose, end quote, to build up its online store. Quote, generally, I think I would prefer not to do exclusives, but I understand Epic's position with it, and quite frankly, they are paying through the nose to build their store, end quote. That was from Kingsley, quote, all credit to them, it's fantastic, and we'll take some of their money. Thank you very much, end quote. We've talked a lot about the Epic Game Store exclusivity stuff on this show, and so I'll just rehash a couple different points I bring up every time we have this conversation. I think that Epic is fighting an intelligent business battle and trying to build their own store with behind a goodwill movement to try to get more beneficial revenue splits between developers and these platform holders, right? So their biggest thing, they've come out and they basically said, Steam, we're holding these exclusive hostage until you can give developers something better than a 70-30 split. Right now they're doing 88-12 with the developers that are coming over to the Epic Game Store. So they've got like these real noble intentions, right, that they're putting out there. And I think that it's good. And I do think that they're trying to actively engage in making good economic changes in the games industry, but also it just comes at it creates good business for them to build their own store, to build their own platform, to get people on board. And so they've got the money to throw around, obviously, between Fortnite, between Unreal Engine, they've got the money to throw around to go to these developers and back up a truckload of money and say, put your game on ours. And I also think that it's interesting how Kingsley puts his quote, right? Because he starts with, I understand Epic's position with it, right? So he's essentially saying here at the beginning, like, we understand what Epic's trying to accomplish. We understand that they're both trying to build their platform, but they're also fighting this good fight that we believe in, that there should be a better split. And so within that is what gets them to the table to hear this paying through the nose number. I doubt Epic is like shooting out cold emails to Rebellion Development and saying like, hey, we'd love to talk to you about exclusivity. We'll start the bidding at yada yada $1 million. I doubt that's how it's going. They're having to get these developers to the table for with something. And I know that these developers know that there's cash involved in the conversation, but I also think that they're coming because they're like, they recognize that Epic is trying to accomplish something in the gaming industry that will ultimately be advantageous to them in the future if Steam budges on this revenue split. Think what you will about Epic. I mean, look, I don't agree with the crunch that they put their developers through. I think that there is some data collection that's going on, but that's in every company. I don't get the hatred for the Epic Game Store and the exclusivity. I just don't. I've read every argument in the book, I think, between all the gaming places I hang out online. Like, I've read every single argument. We've had people come by in the chat and make their arguments, and I just don't get it. I don't get the hatred. I don't get why it's any harder for you to just download another free client to purchase a game through. I don't get the people with Shenmue that were like, oh man, we need a refund because we don't want to download the Epic Game Store. I don't understand it. And if it's benefiting, it's benefiting Rebellion development because they're getting probably a large lump sum of money, but they're also getting the 88-12 revenue split as well. So yeah, I don't know. I don't get it, and I think I'm to the point where like I'm gonna stop even trying to get it because too many people have tried to convince me that they have the real reason that you should be upset, and none of them have been good. They're all varying levels of bad reasoning. Next item on the list: Ubisoft is cracking down on XP boosters in their like create a quest mode. And I linked to the wrong thing here, I think. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's look for it. I'm sure we can find it quickly. Ubisoft XP boosters. So, if you guys don't remember, when Assassin's Creed Odyssey came out, there was some controversy around the fact that you could pay for microtransactions in a single player game that would allow you to accrue XP at a faster rate. And there were things within the game design that gated certain missions behind XP levels to where it was either you had to go grind side missions, or if you wanted to just mainline the story, you had to pay for one of these boosts. Well, they recently came out with a quest builder, which is apparently pretty robust. I haven't had a chance to really look into it at all, but you can create and share your own quests, and people were doing it. They allowed it to where when you made a level, people could accrue XP from completing that level, and so it became an XP farming technique. Well, Ubisoft is taking exception to that and released a statement today saying, quote, "Story Creator Mode was designed to be a tool for players to let their creativity and imagination run free as they build their very own stories to share with others, using a modified version of tools our own designers use to develop the quests in the game. However, since the launch of the beta, we have noticed an increasing flow of farming quests that exploit the tool to get large amounts of XP. These exploits risk jeopardizing the overall quality, integrity, and purpose of Story Creator Mode and result in less visibility for the creative, interesting, and frankly fantastic community stories that have been published," end quote. Then it goes on, quote, "We want to focus on rewarding creativity by highlighting quality quests, and we are working on fixes and adjustments to reduce the impact of such farming quests on the player's experience. We are also changing Story Creator Mode's terms of use to prevent creators from publishing these kinds of stories." End quote. Then they go on to talk about how they're going to start taking action against the people who and sanction the people who create these game modes. So this has some layers to it, because look, I understand part of Ubisoft's argument, right? So obviously there's some sort of like page that you go to that tries to highlight the most popular story levels, story missions or side quests that you can do. And with all these XP farming quests that are there, I imagine that their popular section is being populated by these farming quests, and that's not what they want highlighted, and that's not what they want this game mode known for. So I understand that. I also guess I understand from a business perspective them saying like, look, the way that we're trying to make money to continue to release content for this game is through these XP boosters, and believe what you want about how that game design is. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. It's their business model. And if they just allow a tool that they made to continually undercut their business model, it's either they change the terms of service or they get rid of the tool altogether, right? Because this is what's been built in to their system. This is the way that it works. I think at this point you can't really go back and change the way that your whole monetization model is built in the game. So now threatening to take action against people who create these kinds of level, I think, is a little extreme. I think giving it less visibility or whatever, if people want to go in and create their own XP farming missions and run them, I think that's just the cost of doing business. But I understand not wanting to highlight these on your popular page when the goal of it is to highlight creativity. I get that. I understand that. But don't go like banning people from the tool, right? At least in my opinion. Let's see. Next item on the list. There's a new Mortal Kombat movie in the works and is going to be rated R. This is from Javi Gwaltney over at Game Informer. It says, it's been a busy year for Mortal Kombat. Aside the release of enjoyable if hamstrung Mortal Kombat 11, news about the upcoming Mortal Kombat film has been slowly ambling out the door. First, the premiere of South Australia announced the film was starting production back in May, and this very week, The Hollywood Reporter revealed that Joel Taslim of The Raid fame would be playing everyone's favorite icy ninja Sub-Zero. Today's update is a big one. The Mortal Kombat film will be rated R, and it will feature fatalities. So yeah, it goes on to talk about how the 1990s movies were all rated PG-13, and it all just kind of made it. That made sense, I think, back then. There was a big conversation going on around Mortal Kombat at the time about violence in video games. Mortal Kombat was really like that, and Doom were the two big games that people were saying, like, look how grotesque this violence is. What is it doing to our children? Yada, yada, yada. And at the time, a film adaptation of a video game was probably a bigger deal than the video game itself. And so I imagine they did have to soften the content in that, lest they make even more people aware of how gruesome the violence is in Mortal Kombat. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in 2019 to take the two things that define the series, which is over-the-top gruesome violence and fatalities, and strip them away from whatever film adaptation that you have with them. I think the violence in video game question, while it rears its head from time to time, at the end of the day is kind of behind us to a large extent. So in order to stay true to the franchise, in order to honor the people who have or to serve the people who have made this franchise what it is for years and years, you've got to have that stuff in it, right? You got to. And Greg Russo, the writer of the movie, came out and said, since it's already been stated by other members of the team, I'm going to put this one to bed. MK will be R-rated, and for the first time ever, fatalities will finally be on the big screen. And no, I'm not going to say which ones. You'll just have to wait for the movie and see. So, Mortal Kombat fans who are looking for a, truer representation of the game, there you have it. It's going to have them. Rest easy, my friends. All right. Speaking of content that isn't going to be in games now, Gears 5, sorry. I got to get used to that. It's not Gears of War 5. It's Gears 5. That's it. Is going to be removing tobacco products from its game following a conversation with some anti-smoking advocacy groups. It says the COG soldiers of Gears of War have one less health risk to worry about now. And this is from Blake Woog over at Game Informer. As all depictions of character smoking have been removed from the Gears series, the Coalition has decided to not portray character smoking in any future Gears games, a policy that actually started with Gears of War 4. According to Variety, Truth Initiative approached Turner, the esports broadcaster and organizer that owns the exclusive rights to broadcast Gears 5 gameplay, about the depiction of smoking in the series. In turn, Turner approached the Coalition, who agreed to work with the organization. This is a weird one to me, right? And Rod Ferguson, the studio head at the Coalition, put out a statement about like how he knows the devastating impact of smoking. It's always been important for him to not use it as a narrative device. He didn't want to include it in his games. I don't know, man. It's a weird, look, I don't care. I'm not somebody who's going to get butthurt that there's not smoking. Because I can't even, I played all the Gears games, and I know that there's probably smoking in the games, but I can't specifically point out where. But it just seems like an odd thing in a game where you're chainsawing through people and you've got these just weird mutant proportioned dudes walking around that smoking is the thing that you're concerned about setting a bad example in the game with. I don't know. If me seeing a guy saw another guy in half in a game doesn't make me want to go out and saw a guy in half, then me watching a main character smoke a cigarette isn't going to make me want to go smoke a cigarette, right? So, I don't know. More power to it. If you're the creator of a game and you take you have some moral objection to it, I'm fine with you taking it out of your game, or if you want to appease these groups, like whatever, it doesn't matter to me either way. It's just it's a weird thing to take a stance on, I think, and like to make a stated stance on it. Like, would anyone have noticed if Gears 5 came out and it didn't have smoking in it and nobody said anything? I wouldn't have. All right, guys. That's going to do it for the PvA Nightly Rundown tonight. But stick around. We're going to be playing Apex Legends. I'm going to end it for the YouTube audience, though. We appreciate you guys. It is Friday, so this will be my last video for the week. We'll be back on Monday at 9 o'clock, and I'll be like refreshed and new and feeling awesome because I'll be on vacation, baby. But I'm still okay, cause I'm on vacation. That's the song I listened to as soon as I clocked out of work today. Feeling it, man. If you want to hang out with us live, come on over to twitch.tv/PVA Radio, 9 p.m. Eastern time, or just keep watching us on youtube.com/PVA Radio. Hit the subscribe button, the thumbs up, and the bell. We're going to be breaking out a lot more content into smaller segments so that if you just care about one particular thing, you know, you'll be able to just kind of handpick that. So be on the lookout for some of that. We're going to be doing some more written content over on playerversusall.com. So look out for that as well. But we're going to get out of here. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going to play some Apex. Until next time, guys, we love you. Goodbye.